Hi and welcome to my PlayHouse, and today it's again gonna be about this awesome Lenovo x3650 Model 4. This is a new server here at my PlayHouse, and I am working on getting it ready for doing something on it. So in the last video I firmware updated this, but I only firmware updated the primary IMM2 and the primary UEFI BIOS and some other miscellaneous stuff, but I also wanna update the secondary IMM and UEFI BIOS. This server is one of the first that I know of where there was two versions of the firmware available on the server. So if you for some reason messed up the primary firmware, well, it would go and load the secondary firmware, and I have actually needed that once. I did a processor upgrade on a server like this, and before I could upgrade the processor, I had to firmware upgrade the server so that it would be compatible with the new processor. I was going from a 26 series to a 26 version 2 series, and it wanted a firmware upgrade in between there to recognize the new CPUs and have the right microcode for the CPUs available. So I did that. I firmware upgraded, and I was to I forget why, but I was to shut down the server right when it had upgraded. So I went around the rack and I pressed the power button, and as soon as I saw that it rebooted, I was gonna release it, and the first thing it said was don't power off, and oh crap. I powered it off and it said I shouldn't have, and it had ruined my firmware upgrading. But I was able to have it boot the secondary firmware, and then I had to firmware upgrade again, and I didn't make that mistake the second time, and everything worked out great. But had it not had that secondary firmware available there, it wouldn't have been great. It might just have ruined the entire server. But this server has, of course, secondary IMM and secondary UEFI firmware, so today we're gonna be upgrading that. Also, it has 6 hard drives that I think we should make some kind of a partition on, and yeah, let's get going. So I am in the BIOS here, and it kind of only shows us the primary firmware. You can kind of see that we have the version 3.30 firmware, and it's not that old. It's from this year, it's from June. And then we have the IMM, and that's from February, but also this year, so that's not that old. Then we have some diagnostics, that is pretty old. And if we go further down, we also have some call root trust, that is also pretty new. And then we go back to the top. So it doesn't really show us the secondary firmware in here. So I have the remote console for the server running here. I am in the IMM2. I have connected to it. We gave it an IP number 48 in the last video, and that is still up and running. So let's log in again here. Log in, and I do believe that I showed this in the last video as well. Logged into the IMM. And this one is still open. I should close it because it's not working with this session. Let's just minimize it. We might use it for something. But if we go up to server management, we have a server firmware tab here. And if we go into that, in here we can see primary and backup IMM firmware. Okay, they don't call it secondary, I call it that. This is the backup. So this is inactive, and it's on a really old version, a version 4.55 back from 2014. And the UEFI BIOS backup, which is also inactive, is even older. That's from 2012, probably more or less the original firmware that the server came with. So let's try and get something to replace that with. If we go to Lenovo's site and find the system x3650 M4, and well, we get a lot of good stuff here, but if we press and says we want the UEFI here, what it really says is that you should go get that over at IBM. So yeah, that's a bit iffy if you ask me. but I did so. I went over to IBM Fix Center here, and yes, they have a lot of good stuff for the server. And if we check, go to the UEFI here, we do have the latest and the greatest, the same one that we installed using BOMC in the last video, and we can download that. To do that, you do need to register with IBM, so that well, you need an account, and when you log in with that account, you get to download that. I have actually downloaded it. You can kind of see that there is two things sitting down here. There is the IMM2 and there is the UEFI. We could just press this and just see what we see. There we have to agree to the license agreement. Agree. Yeah, we get to download that. If you haven't logged in, it will come and tell you to log in. Let's see if we can download the DSA, the diagnostic thing. That was way out of date as well, so we can just see if no, that's actually the one they have running here as well, so probably that is okay. I thought that it would have been outdated, but apparently 2014 is about right. Okay, I have downloaded those, so let's see if we can firmware update the server using the IMM. We'll just drag the IMM back into view. There we are. There's a update firmware button right here, so press that and it tells us that we can go and seek the firmware packages. I'm just gonna ask it to select the file, and we're gonna go, it's in the download folder, and there here, that's the, let's start with the IMM. That's the file name. It has some weird UXZ extension, but let's open that and select that file. Yes, next. I'm sure it's gonna chew a little bit on that and check if this file is as it should be. It's uploading the file, and when it's done doing that, it will check if this is a file that we can install, and hopefully it is. There, it did that, successfully uploaded, and it tells us that uploaded file was detected. It was an IMM file, built this and that. It's the same version as the primary, but well, the backup is older than that. So let's go. Hope that when we press next, yeah, we get to select to update, and we can update the backup bank there. We could also do two things if we wanted to update both, but we're just gonna be updating the backup bank. So next, and it's gonna do that. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. And we're just about there. Let's see what happens when it hits 100%. No? Okay, cool. Success, success, success. Very nice of them. We need to restart the IMM, I guess. Yeah, it might not be necessary for the backup, but let's say finish here. It even updated the version down here, so that is cool. Let's tell it to put in the new firmware as well. So select the new file and the firmware. That's a considerably smaller file. So that has selected. Next, it should upload that. Successfully uploaded, and it tells us that it's the same version as the primary, but the backup is older. So we're gonna continue, and we're gonna select to update the backup bank, just like on the other one, and it's gonna be doing that. Okay, that didn't work as well. So what it says is that it's not able to access the, well, to do this while it's in the setup screen or loading OS. So probably we need to either be in the OS or just power it down for it to do this. So let's try and just load the OS. I'll go in setup here, see if it loads something. I'll let it load the operating system, and then we'll see if it's able to do it then. Okay, let's see how this goes. Went a lot better. I have the operating system booted here, and it's happy about that. We have updated that as well, let's it has to reboot the operating system. Okay, no problem. I'll give it time to reboot and we'll get back to it. It says pending here on the UEFI backup BIOS thing. The server is rebooting multiple times in there, checking out the new firmware and checking that everything is good. It takes a little bit longer, but yeah, it's doing something. Interesting to see if that pending, if that disappears. Okay, it has changed. It didn't update it by itself. I had to go out and go in, and then it was updated. So it's a little bit impressive that, well, this server is from 2012 and still here 8 years later there's still new updates for it. So that is really cool. So if there is something that is a bit disappointing with this otherwise awesome Lenovo x3650 Model 4, it's the configuration of the local storage. They kind of prepared it so that it would be possible to configure the RAID controller from within the IMM2 adapter here, but the RAID controller that is built into the server, it's not compatible. It's really just a joke. I'm not a big fan of that. It sees the drives that are on here. Those are all good. Can't get any real information about them. And also there is well, you can actually use those memory flash EX flash. They were available for this server and a couple of other models, but I don't have any of those. But more or less you take an SSD and you put it into a RAM slot, and then you have your storage directly in the RAM. We need to go into the UEFI BIOS again to configure that, but it has just started Windows Server up, so I need to reboot it again and go into the BIOS. Okay, we are in the BIOS again. If we go down to system settings, we have the adapter and UEFI drivers. I believe we can go that way in. Let's see if we can't see the drivers of that one should be the RAID controller. But there's also a way to go into it from the storage tab down here, there, and it will directly lead us into the right way. We can configure it from here. It's not as pretty as previous versions. Configuration management, controller, virtual drive management, hardware components. You can see the drives in here. There are 6 3TB hard drives. SAS. Very nice, and they are formatted in 512-bit. Nice. And you can see the virtual drive. We can see that there are 4 virtual drives configured. 3 of them is in a RAID 5 and the last one is a RAID 0. A lot of storage there. I think we should kind of delete some of this. Let's see, select that, options. We can delete this virtual drive there. I think we need to say go, and then we have to approve that. It's kind of the long way around this time, and successfully okay. Now there's only 3. Let's get rid of the next one. There. Select operation. We will delete the virtual drive. There. We need to go. We need to set that one and confirm. And okay, so now there's 2. And I'll get rid of the last 2 as well. There, we are totally out of virtual drives. So now we can go and configure some new ones. Here we can see the RAID controller. It's the ServRAID M5110E. E for integrated, I don't know. It's the one on the system board. It does have an expansion on it. A cache controller that also enables a RAID 5. Okay, main menu. Let's create a new virtual drive. Create virtual drive, yes. We are gonna select the RAID 5. Select drives from unconfigured capacity. That's probably good. Let's try that. we need to go down there and select drive. Right. So we can select the drives that we want to add. Oops. That one, and 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 that should be the last. Oh, I could just have checked all. How rude. Uncheck, apply change, and apply change. There, the operation has performed successfully. Okay. Virtual drive name, we can give it some name. Let's call it SAS storage. See if it needs that. It's okay with that. Virtual drive size. Okay, that seems all good. So save configuration. Let's see if we get our drive. Let's see, we need to mark that, and then we can press yes. Creating virtual drive. The operation has been successfully okay. So if we go down to virtual drives, do we have any? We do. We have virtual drive 0, which is called SAS storage. It's a RAID 5 and it's 13.624 something terabytes. Awesome. It works. It's not as pretty as it was in previous versions. You might still be able to press some kind of Control C during boot to go and configure it in a nicer way. I should probably have checked that. There is still some firmware that could have done with a bit of upgrading. So as this server is kind of a storage server with these big 3.5-inch hard drives, it would be cool to boot it from something else. It does have a USB stick in there that you can put ESXi on, but you could also try and boot it from one of these NVMe drives with the little PCB, which is actually back in stock. So if you visit my little shop, link in the description, well, I have some of these that I'm selling. Again, they're way too expensive in my shop, but buying them, you support what I do. Let's try and put one of these in and see if we can boot from it and install an operating system on it. The server is powered off. It's still powered, so the IMM2 is still on, and you might be able to hear the power supplies still running. I've had some questions about this. Yes, it is not totally quiet when it's powered off, but still has power. Right now we're gonna make it quiet because I don't want those in when I put in a PCI Express card. So let's go in. Actually down here there's still power on the RAID controller card. That's the expansion, and that is still powered. It has a battery backup, which is, well, it goes around and is actually located here. There is a battery and some other miscellaneous stuff. So I don't know why that is powered. It shouldn't really matter, but let's pop this up. And we see here we have a fake riser card. These are x16 slots, but the real slots is 8, 4 and 1. So it doesn't really have x16, it's just the connection that is an x16 connection. So let's put in our card. If we want it in slot number 1, we should put it at the top. So I think we'll do that. Put it in slot number 1. There is our NVMe drive. And let's pop this back in. And we'll need to go into the BIOS and see if we can figure out how to boot from this. I do not believe that I've tried that. So just put the cover back on, and I have put power to the server. It will be booting the IMM right now. So if I power it on right now, it's gonna be noisy as heck. If I wait a couple of minutes and then power it on, it's gonna be much more nice and quiet. Because as long as the IMM is not up and fully running, it doesn't know what the server is doing, and it will run the fans full speed, which is sometimes a bit irritating. So let's wait a couple of minutes. Okay, I must admit the server is more noisy as usual. I think that putting that card in, it's more noisy. Boot options, we go in here, we can see there's a Windows boot manager. From some hard drive stuff. that probably isn't valid anymore. So boot manager, in here we can add boot devices, and if we go into generic boot options, we will find that there is nothing that rhymes with what we would be looking for here, what we are looking for. So we can go down to Wi-Fi full path options, platform specific boot devices, and physical. Oh, there's nothing here. They can boot from the NICs, the DSA, the diagnostics things, and from hard drives, from the RAID controller. Nothing that we need. But we have the platform specific boot devices here, and here we can go down and tell it to boot from slot 1. I'm gonna try that. Input description, let's see if that will do it. Input file path, we don't have that, there is nothing there. Input optional, so nothing there. Let's commit change there. So if we go back, oh, it did go up there. Okay, so let's change the boot order and have that boot first. There. Go out, and then we'll delete some of the options that we don't need, like that one we don't have, that one we don't need, that one. There is actually not a CD-ROM drive in this server, so let's change there. Okay, check the boot order. Oh, it has changed that. We need to go up and change. Cool. I'll try and install Server 2019 and see if it pops up. Okay, I pressed F12 to go into the boot device manager, and it's a little bit worrying that my NVMe drive has not shown up. So I'm gonna try and boot the USB 2 in the front here, and that should start the installation of Server 2019. And it's gonna be interesting to see if Server 2019 sees it. Oh, there is actually a Control H to go into the web BIOS to configure your RAID controller, but we did that from the DOS lookalike thingy. So will it start installation of Server 2? Yeah, it does. It's gonna do that. Okay, this actually looks promising. We have the big drive that we just created, 14 terabyte-ish, and we have the king spec down here, 238.5 gigabytes. So let's try and select the king spec and create new on that and apply. Oh, can I create a new partition? That's unfortunate. And then it did it anyway. It says that Windows cannot be installed on drive 1 partition 1. Show details. Ensure that the disk controller is enabled in the computer's BIOS menu. Yeah, what if we press next? Yes. Wait, well it's installing on it. It might not work, but we'll give it a go. Maybe we can figure out how to boot on it anyway. Okay, now it's done copying over the files, and it's probably gonna try and boot the system for the first time. And that is probably where I'm gonna run into trouble, that it won't boot because it can't find the boot device. But I'll see what happens. Yeah, Windows needs to boot. Reboot now. 5 seconds. 4, 3. Let's see if it figures it out. Right now it's connecting to boot devices and adapters. Let's hope it finds something good. Okay, that's not great. It failed to boot NVMe. Let's see if it figures anything else out. Okay, I'll try and go into the BIOS and ask it, see if I can boot from something in there. I have been looking at this and been trying different stuff. I can't select the boot device in the BIOS anywhere, and I went to the computer and I did a Google search, and found on the Lenovo forum that someone had asked to do this and was told that the M4 was not able to do this, so I cannot believe that. So unfortunately I'm not going to be able to boot from the NVMe drive. As soon as Windows is up and running, well, it sees the drive just fine. It seems that the UEFI BIOS does not have the drivers or knowledge of to boot from NVMe, so that's probably a dead end for now, at least. If anyone knows how to trick this or get around it, I would be very interested in reading that in the comments below. And also remember, if you want to get smarter, please read the comments below. There's a lot of smart people that gives me a lot of good suggestions down there, and you might just get something out of that as well. So yeah, I have those NVMe adapters for sale on my little shop, so remember to go check those out. It would be very awesome. But otherwise from that, could you give this video a like? We did get somewhere. We didn't get all the way, but we did get part of the way, so a little like. So thank you very much for watching my videos. Do subscribe to my channel so you can see me again, and have a really nice day. Bye bye.